Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is coming at you on a Victory Friday. That's right. After a 3-day hiatus, 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on this Friday afternoon with so much good to talk about following a little holiday break. I am Dan Lucero, flying solo this afternoon. Spencer Dupuis is on vacation. Brendan Wrzinski remains on paternity leave. Our final Friday show of the calendar year 2024 is live on 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And folks, we are in living color on our video stream. That's right. Whatever the hell was wrong on Monday, it's not wrong today. It's working. You can watch the program on YouTube. The channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can watch us as well on Facebook at WIBW News. So we have fixed the video issue. Thanks to all of you who are hanging out with us today. Friends, trusted agents, ball knowers, welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out. We got 3 hours of sports talk to come your way and lots to talk about. Lots of good stuff to talk about. K-State, what a rally in the Rate Bowl last night. That game, everything you want a bowl game to be from a neutral perspective, right? Ton of points, explosive plays, back and forth, dramatic at the end. Quiet as it's kept. All of the bowls have been awesome. You heard a great one earlier today here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, with Navy getting the stop on the 2-point conversion to defeat Oklahoma in the Armed Forces Bowl. So that was pretty cool. A lot of great bowl games. The one to Toledo Pitt game that went a bunch of overtimes. Hawaii Bowl went like 5-6 overtimes the night before Christmas. The bowls have ruled. The more we try to make the bowls irrelevant, the better they get. And the Rate Bowl was no exception. An awesome football game. And if you're a Wildcat fan, maybe it didn't feel so awesome for the first, 40 minutes or so. But boy, those last 20 were a humdinger. K-State comes back from 17 down. They win it 44-41. The vibes are back. Restart the hype train because you get to see that offense intact in 2025. You get to see that quarterback and that running back and that wide receiver one and that other running back. And I don't want to forget Joe Jackson here because he looks like he could be a special one too. So lots of good stuff to talk about from the Rate Bowl. Tim Fitzgerald will join us. He should be off a plane and returning to Manhattan right about now. We'll get Fitz's thoughts on that Rate Bowl victory for the Cats. He'll join us bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Of course, Fitz typically joins us Wednesday for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. I'll need to figure out some kind of alliteration for a Fridays with Fitz. There it is. It's a Friday with Fitz today to talk K-State football. Maybe we'll get to basketball. We'll try and avoid it. That's my promise to you. We'll try and avoid talking about the unpleasantness that is Kansas State basketball, men's basketball anyhow, and stick to football with Fitz at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Also, it's Victory Friday for the Chiefs. Wasn't that a much merrier Christmas that the Chiefs gave you on Wednesday than the one they left you with last year? No coal in the stocking this time around. Just a dominant 29-10 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Probably the Chiefs' best game of the season. And now it's stress-free for 3 weeks. You've got 3 weeks until you have to worry about anything that happens in an NFL game. Because week 18, completely immaterial. I wouldn't even put Patrick Mahomes on a plane to Denver, if I'm being honest about it. I wouldn't put Chris Jones on the plane. I wouldn't put Travis Kelce on the plane. I'd leave Andy Reid at home if it weren't, his job to coach. A peaceful, easy feeling for Chiefs fans. That was your Christmas gift. The number 1 seed secured. The Chiefs win all 3 games of their 3-game and 11-day gauntlet and go to 15-1. And once again, we must say it, the Chiefs appear to be peaking at the right time. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the other stuff from that game too, including the Netflix football experience. I didn't have any buffering over on my end, but I'm curious as to how many of you actually got to watch it when you go over the river and through the woods to grandma's house and grandma doesn't have great Wi-Fi. Or maybe grandma doesn't pay the, $25 a month now for Netflix? Hey, look, they paid $150 million for those football games. That money's got to come from somewhere, right? I'm curious because the viewership numbers are out and they are high. Certainly, the NFL and Netflix will be pleased with how many people watched the games, or at least how many people Netflix says watched the games. Remember when they said like 100 million people watched Bird Box? That's not possible. And then the first press release came out, said 200 countries, people in over 200 countries. The UN doesn't even recognize 200 countries. What countries are we talking about here? Is this like Dave Chappelle on the Black Bush sketch where he's talking about which countries are in the coalition of the willing and he just starts making them up? Riggedy Row is coming. Yeah, was Riggedy Row watching Chiefs and Steelers? I genuinely don't know. But anyway, we'll get into some of that later on, all the incidentals. And of course, since it is a Friday, we'll talk Chiefs with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. Our Chiefs insider will join the program. We'll get his perspective on that Chiefs thumping of the Steelers on Wednesday afternoon. So that's coming up on the program today as well. We've also got our Prairie Band Sportsbook 580 Sports Talk Picks Contest. Brendan has lost his lead by winning percentage, so he's back making picks this week. You will not hear from him on the show, but you will hear his picks. I'm in dead last. I need a winning week. I got my picks. Spencer now is in the position maybe of trying to run out the clock. I don't have Spencer's picks yet. He's got an hour. He's out in Virginia seeing his family for the holiday. And if he doesn't send picks, he doesn't send picks. But right now, Spencer, after a 5-0 week last week, has a winning record overall and is the standings leader. So he could sit on the ball trying to run out the clock as we don't have many picks left to make on the 580 Sports Talk Picks Contest brought to you by Prairie Band Sportsbook. But that is coming up. The December championship and what is wrong with you is coming up. We got 4 stories. We're going to get it down to 1 by the end of the show and pick a December champion so that on Monday next week, we will bring you all 12 monthly champions on our year in review show. It'll be our year in what is wrong with you, smack in the middle of our year in review show. And we've got 4 great stories: the professional drinker, the woman with the golden gun, forgot my fake ID, and the 2-armed bandit. And those will compete for our December championship. We've got some sports headlines. We've got some thoughts on NFL Week 17, bowl season, lots of football, lots of happy things to talk about today on the show. And sure appreciate that you are along for the ride. Plenty of ways to get involved with the show today. You can interact on the live chat on YouTube. If you are watching in your browser or on your mobile device or on a streaming stick of some kind, there is a live chat function on YouTube. The channel is 580 Sports Talk. We're only 3 subscribers short of 700, by the way. So if you haven't subscribed, today would be a great day to help get us over that 700 subscriber mark, to make Brendan jealous that he wasn't around for another milestone. Do it for that reason, if for nothing else. But interact in the live chat. Already see that filling up. We got our Marks are in, Mark B and Mark H. Vance is in. Tyler is into the show. The Gilliland family, welcome to them for commenting on the show today. And yes, after a snafu on Monday that I cannot explain, we do have video and audio back on the YouTube feed. If you go and you click on it, you will be able to hear me. It will not just be a spinning white circle. We got it fixed. By we, I mean they, because it wasn't our problem, frankly. But that's one way to interact with the show. Another way to interact with the show is to text the program. The text line is wide open, 785-272-9429. Send us a text throughout the show, 785-272-9429. All right, ball knowers, let's mount up. Let's start with a Rate Bowl recap as K-State rewrites the ending of their 2024 season and points towards an extremely bright future with the largest comeback win in their bowl history. And I will be frank, I didn't see it coming. If you watched the first 40 minutes of that game, How was K-State ever going to get a stop? It looked impossible. It was very troubling how easy it seemed for Rutgers without their star, first-team All-Big Ten running back, Kyle Monangai, in the game, playing at all. Rutgers still poured it down K-State's throat for the first 40 minutes to take that 34-17 lead. But I do think that there were elements to the Rutgers offense. There was a tempo. There was more passing. There was more use of their quarterback, Calic Manis, as a runner that I think really did catch K-State off guard. There were a lot of times where it felt like K-State was flat-footed on defense. And I do think some of it was scheme. I do think Rutgers put in some new stuff without Monangai playing in the game that threw K-State off. And I also think, particularly on the back end, we saw a Wildcat team playing full of guys that didn't have a ton of experience. I mean, you look at who was getting a lot of those defensive back snaps. There were 4 freshmen and 1 sophomore who took a bunch of snaps in the defensive backfield. And yeah, we still saw Marquise Siegel and Keenan Garber, a couple of guys ending their careers on winning notes. We saw some veterans, and we saw some guys like Jack Fabris is a freshman, but he played quite a bit this year. But that was the most we'd gotten a look at guys like Wesley Fair, Donovan McIntosh at corner, Zayshawn Rich at corner. Daniel Cobbs had to play a bunch in the Colorado game and didn't really play well. And then we didn't see him until, hey, there he was intercepting a pass to help make that comeback in the second half a possibility. So I think 2 things happened in the second half for the K-State defense. Number one, those guys, those freshmen and sophomores, Cobbs is the only sophomore in that group. Rich, Fabris, Fair, McIntosh. Donovan McIntosh, you show me a corner who is 6'3", I am intrigued. I am excited. I want to see what that looks like moving forward. Big corners with long arms? Hell yeah. Sign me up, especially the way K-State plays, because they need to be good one-on-one. They need to be physical on the perimeter because Joe Klanderman is going to blitz. You know that. And Joe Klanderman's blitzes were getting beat in the first half and in the start of the second half. But more and more, as the game wore on, they started to get home a little bit. And Joe Klanderman has always been a coach who we have credited for being able to make second-half adjustments. K-State's defenses usually get better as the game goes on. And I think we saw another example of that yesterday. And again, that's adjusting to some scheme things you maybe didn't think you were going to see. And it's just guys getting comfortable. Like Zayshawn Rich went from getting beat over the top on a post route on, I want to say it was the second scoring drive of the game for Rutgers, to a couple of pass breakups and making a play over the middle to effectively seal the game on defense. That's a comfort level. That's something that you get as you grow into a game. And K-State's defense deserves a ton of credit for that. The coaching staff deserves a ton of credit for holding Rutgers to 14 points in the second half. And really, the special teams shares some responsibility on half of those because they gave up the long punt return that set up the score that made it 41-29 early in the fourth quarter. But the defense did what it had to do after struggling in those first 40 minutes, and it gave the offense a chance to catch up. And man, did they ever. Dylan Edwards as feature back, round one of that was a smashing success. 18 for 196, 2 touchdowns, and also a touchdown reception from Avery Johnson. And frankly, Rutgers is lucky it was only 1 touchdown reception as Avery missed his buddy on a deep ball. I want to say late third quarter. They'll get the timing right on that. And all year long, we thought K-State's going to get creative about how they use Dylan Edwards. And then they never really did. And I know it was a point of frustration throughout the regular season that Dylan Edwards seemed to disappear from the playbook for extended periods of time. And on the one hand, I kind of got it because it's not like the guy in front of him was some bum, right? It's the third all-time leading rusher in K-State history, DJ Giddens. It's tough to turn to DJ Giddens and say, we don't want to give you the ball. We don't want you on the field. But now that he's not in front of Dylan Edwards on the depth chart, Looked like Connor Riley and Matt Wells said, okay, now we can have some fun with this guy. And boy, they had some fun with Dylan Edwards. You saw the total package. You saw his ability to hit the hole on the inside and turn it into big gains with his speed. You saw the moves in the open field. You saw his ability to get to the edge and turn the corner, which we had gotten to see all of those things in brief snippets. But that was the first time we saw the full Dylan Edwards experience. And if that's what it's going to be, whoa, mama, look out Big 12, because that was fun. And Joe Jackson as running back too, I'm not sure there are going to be too many better RB2s in the country than that guy, because he runs physically. He can catch out of the backfield. He's not as fast as Dylan Edwards, but you can do a lot of the same stuff with him. You don't have to feel like, and I think, and this is not to knock Giddens' all-around ability, because he was a good pass catcher too, but Giddens and Edwards are so different that it's hard to have running back one and running back two sometimes be that divergent as players and try and construct an offense without overloading the playbook and sometimes trying to do too much or be too many different things. I think with Edwards and Jackson, they're just not going to miss a beat, whoever's in there at running back, from a drive-to-drive basis. And I think that's going to help the offense find more flow and find more consistency moving forward. Those weren't the only skill players who showed out. Jace Brown set the sophomore record for receiving yards. K-State hasn't had a trustworthy, potentially game-breaking wide receiver one since, I would argue, Tyler Lockett. Been a long time since you felt like wide receiver one for K-State was a dude. In the same way that, like, Tyson for Arizona State is a dude, or guys like that. You know, the two guys, Noel and Higgins at Iowa State. Like, those guys, you feel like they're 7-Elevens. They're always open. Jace Brown can be that guy. And there were a lot of rumors that he was going to enter the transfer portal, that there was a disconnect between him and the program. Some not very nice things were being said about Jace Brown. In the end, it ended up being Trey Spivey who hit the portal, and Jace Brown's going to stick around. And it looks like that relationship between him and Avery Johnson has another level that it can get to on the field. And that's an exciting thought. And then you get to Avery Johnson, who last night was Avery Johnson. And I mean that in the positive and the negative way, because it wasn't perfect. There were some throws that were missed. The interception he threw was completely inexplicable. There are times where you watch Avery Johnson and feel like he just doesn't make the right play, trying to do too much, trying to hit the home run, when sometimes just taking what's there or sometimes just throwing the ball out of bounds will do just fine. Avery Johnson needs to learn which plays aren't there, which plays he can't make. That's kind of the last step, because the good stuff for Avery Johnson, really, really good. You saw the arm strength, the ability to fit the ball into tight windows. You certainly saw the running ability mixed in very nicely for a couple of big plays, and to put the game away late, they put it in Avery Johnson's hands. On that third down, where a first down ends the ball game, they told Avery to go make a play, and Avery made a play. And there were more growing pains than maybe some of us, and I'll put my hand up and say I'm part of this, expected with regards to Avery in his first full year as a starter, as a sophomore. But I think there's still a lot of room for Johnson to improve and be the player that we think he can be, to be that player who maybe shows up on some Heisman Trophy watch lists. I still think that guy is there. It's just a matter of improving decision-making. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to improve. And some guys, I mean, you watch the NFL, you've seen guys who have all the physical tools in the world and they never get there. But I think Avery will put in the work. And I think that his ceiling remains incredibly high. So you watched that offense last night, and you feel like that alone makes K-State a Big 12 contender in 2025. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to need to clean some things up, starting with special teams. Another awful night for the special teams. They got to do something about that. The coverage has never been worse. They gave up far too many big plays on special teams this year. That has to improve. And yes, the secondary, I think, showed some promise, but it's going to be a young group next year. The transfer in of Gunnar Maldonado from Arizona is going to help a lot at safety, but they're going to lose veterans, guys who've been trusted at the corner spots, at the safety spots, and they're going to lean on some young guys this next season, and that can be scary. But the offense alone should have you excited. Crazy depth at tight end, and they're adding Lincoln Cure to that mix. 2 running backs that could start for any other team in the Big 12. A quarterback that will enter as one of the Big 12's best next year. Bowl games like those help set the vibes for the season to come. These mid-tier bowl games, I'm saying in general, they help you set the tone and set the vibes for the next season. And I think the vibes are going to be really high entering 2025 in Manhattan after that performance and after that comeback. We'll talk more about it with Tim Fitzgerald, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Right now, we'll take our first break. When we come back, the Chiefs won on Christmas Day. I have some thoughts on that. Matt Derrick's going to share his too when he joins us in about, 10, 15 minutes or so, as we are just getting started on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Some thoughts from the YouTube live chat on the K-State Rate Bowl victory, 44-41 over Rutgers. Mark B's a believer in Avery Johnson, says Matt Wells will fix him. That's the beauty of what we've seen from Avery. He just set the program record for touchdowns in a season. It's not like he needs a ton of fixing. It's not as though I think we look at the whole of Avery Johnson and say, man, there's a lot that you've got to scrap and take out of his game. It's just decision-making. It's just processing. And that's the kind of thing that typically gets better with experience. And Matt Wells does have a great track record with quarterbacks. Gilliland family agrees, says Avery J will come around and be really good. Mark B also says, sign me up for Dylan Edwards as number 1 guy. Yeah, that was something, wasn't it? I mean, That was everything you would have wanted it to be and more for Dylan Edwards in his first start. If you had any concerns about, well, he's not a big guy, can he still hit those holes up between the tackles, between the guards and the A gap, the B gap? Can he make those runs work? Yeah, he hit one of those for 65 yards and a touchdown. I think he can make it work. I think he's that kind of guy. And Joe Jackson's pretty darn good, too. Even if it was just Joe Jackson, you'd feel good about the K-State running back room. To have two of those guys for next year, I don't think they're going to miss a beat at the running back spot. And that is no disrespect to an all-time K-State great and DJ Giddens. I just think that's the ceiling that the young guys have in Edwards and Jackson. A lot more K-State talk in the 4 o'clock hour when Tim Fitzgerald joins the show from GoPowerCat.com. Matt Derrick's going to join us a bit to talk Chiefs as they rolled the Steelers 29-10 on Christmas Day. Who'd have seen this coming? The Chiefs go into that game, no Chris Jones. They sack Russell Wilson 5 times. Chiefs also go into that game against the Steelers pass rush, which has this great reputation, and a future Hall of Famer in TJ Watt, and Patrick Mahomes doesn't get sacked. Not once. Now, a couple of holding penalties on Jawan Taylor. But I'll say this for Jawan Taylor, especially with him playing on an injured knee and having to deal with TJ Watt for most of the afternoon, I'd rather him take the holding than let TJ Watt hit Patrick Mahomes. Honestly, if Jawan Taylor was beaten, holding was the right thing to do, strategically speaking. So, yeah, they had the holding penalty that cost him points on the drive where they had the 3rd and 1 converted, and he got called for a hold. But you have to tip your cap to this Chiefs offensive line and what they've done over the course of the last 3 games. Joe Thuney at left tackle has outperformed realistic expectations for what he can do at that spot. And the rest of the guys have fallen in line. It's made the passing offense look a lot more cohesive. I don't know which of these things is the bigger deal, the bigger plus for the Chiefs passing attack, whether it's the steady offensive line play that has maybe restored the quarterback's confidence a little bit, or whether it's Hollywood Brown returning and now everybody's in a role in the offense that makes sense. And there's a lot more gravity on the field because you have to account for everybody who is on the field. You have to account for Xavier Worthy, and you have to account for Travis Kelce, and you have to account for Hollywood Brown, and you have to account for DeAndre Hopkins because he's going to the Hall of Fame. Well, okay, who do you cheat off of, right? Who do you double? Who on any given play are you shading towards? Because if you take your attention off of one of those 4 guys, they are good enough to hurt you and hit you for a first down or hit you for a big play. I don't think it's coincidence we started to see Travis Kelce with more space. And, man, he needs more space because he can't run anymore, man. Like, it is obvious every week. Travis Kelce just can't do it in space like he used to. Can't do it the yards after the catch like he used to. But you know what he still can do? Run a route. The legs might be going, but the brain isn't. He can still find space. He can still sell a route, get himself open like he did for the touchdown that set the record. And he did have enough in his legs to dunk that ball over the goalpost a la Tony Gonzalez and then hit up Tony G on Twitter afterward and say, hey, you going to help with that fine like you said you would? Which was a very funny exchange between the 2 Chiefs greats. Now 1 and 2, Kelce and Gonzalez on the all-time touchdown reception list in Chiefs history. It was just a lot to like about the game. All 3 phases, there was something to like. He had the big punt return by Remigio early. Butker missed 1 extra point, but it's always been tough to kick on that turf at Pittsburgh. Made all the rest of his kicks. Chiefs continue to force turnovers. Justin Reed had a pick. Trent McDuffie forced a fumble. Everything appears to be coming together for this Chiefs team. Mark B says it. They're rounding into form for the playoffs again on the YouTube live chat. The Gillilands ask will Patrick Mahomes and most of the ones be rested against Denver? I don't think they're getting on the plane. We'll ask Matt Derrick his thoughts, but I don't think that they are getting on the plane to Denver if they don't have to. So, they will bring the bare minimum of guys you need to play. They'll be pulling guys off the practice squad you've never heard of. Guys with names you've never seen in your life are going to be suiting up against the Denver Broncos 2 Sundays from today. They've earned that. They've earned that number 1 seed. It was 23 days between Christmas and the first possible playoff game, January 18th. That is the ultimate reward. And to me, with how much football this team has had to play, with that 3-game and 11-day gauntlet, with the fact that they that they had their bye all the way back in week 6, and with the fact that they've played so much extra football in January and February with all these postseason runs that these other teams they're contending against haven't, I think the bye was a necessity for the Chiefs if they were going to win a 3rd straight Super Bowl. And now they've got it. And now you, the fan, nothing to stress over for 3 weeks. That must be nice. We'll take a break. We'll get Matt Derrick's thoughts. Our Chiefs insider joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. Let's talk some Chiefs with our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Joins this program every Friday here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Again, read his work at ChiefsDigest.com. Follow him on all the social media, InstaFace, Snapface, all of them, Blue Sky, Twitter, what have you, at Matt Derrick. Matt, how was your Christmas?
You know what? Well, I was going to say I had to work on Christmas, but by and large, it was fairly relaxing because didn't have a lot of angst from Chiefs fans. Had a pretty good Christmas Eve with the family, so I can't complain. How about yourself?
It was great. It was my son's first Christmas. So
wonderful.
Yeah, Santa was really good to Asher. He had a great day. He loved everything that was gifted to him, and he's just had a very, very happy Christmas. And that was really what mattered to me. Like I didn't really care what I got, what I did. Just that Asher had a good day, and he did, and that was a successful Christmas. And then the Chiefs left a much better present in everyone's stocking with a 29-10 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Andy Reid, after the game, said it might have been his team's best three-phase performance of the season. Are you inclined to agree with that with a couple of days to think about it?
Yeah, I think I really do. I mean, there was a couple of snafus on special teams, and I'm not even going to blame Nico Remigio for that fumble, because that was just a good defensive play, a good hit on the ball. But hey, you can't have 12 men on the field. There's a couple of those, and a couple of penalties here and there. But I mean, especially from the offense, it was a very clean, efficient day. Mahomes goes over 300 yards. It just seemed like there were open receivers all over the place. Protection was good. Defense holds the Steelers at 10 points, and really, I think, took the will out of that offense about midway through the second half. So, yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, if Andy Reid said that the Saturday game against the Texans was maybe their best game of the season, and I think they backed it up with a really good performance against the Steelers as well.
You mentioned how good the passing attack looked. What in your mind is the biggest reason that particular element of the game has seemed to hit a stride here over the last couple of games? Is it the return of Hollywood Brown, or is it the improvement in the pass protection? If you had to put one of those reasons above the other, what would it be?
Wow, that's a pretty good question, but I think I would probably say the return of Hollywood Brown. Although, if I had to throw in a wild card factor, I think I would probably say the decision making of Patrick Mahomes, because his two fastest times of the season as far as getting rid of the football were the last two games. He had, I think it was 2.5 seconds, the time to throw before he was getting rid of the ball on average against the Texans. I think it was the 2.34 seconds against the Steelers. He is making more quicker decisions and getting rid of the ball more quickly. And when you've got the playmakers that he has, and you've got the guys that put a stress on the defense, I mean, that's a winning strategy. And if you get rid of the football in 2.5 seconds, if your offensive line can't provide you that kind of protection, then there's serious problems. They're able to do that. I mean, so with that enough time, and with Mahomes making those decisions, and the key question to me, and what the Chiefs were betting on, was just that Hollywood Brown was going to come back and be that just the third heat, if you will, that it was just going to be that one piece that puts this offense over the top that defenses now just really have to worry about across the board. And I don't think there was, any better example than, Saturday against the Texans, when you saw them put, all three of those guys, as far as Worthy, Hopkins, and Brown. I think it was the first time that all three of them were on the same side of the field. And I'm just looking at that formation, and I'm like, okay, one of these guys is going to be wide open, because you as a defense, I don't see how one-on-one, man-on-man, you can guard all three of those guys. And sure enough, Hollywood Brown gets wide open, gets the catch, first down. That's going to happen a lot. If these guys all stay healthy, you throw in the fact that Xavier Worthy is more comfortable, DeAndre Hopkins is more comfortable. The plan and the hope for the Chiefs all along, I mean, they originally thought this was going to be with Rashee Rice, but once things went south and Brown got hurt, Rice got hurt, they were still hoping that by the time the playoffs rolled around, they would have an offense that was going to stress people out. And I think we're starting to see that.
I was talking about that earlier, just the segment before, that when those four guys are on the field in the passing game, when it's Worthy and Hopkins and Brown and Kelsey, I don't know who defenses shade towards. I feel like whoever they shade toward is going to leave somebody with the ability to get open and make it hurt. And it maybe felt like teams were starting to shade away from Travis Kelsey, and boy, he made the Steelers hurt on Wednesday, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Travis showed that you still can't just play him straight up man on man. I mean, he's a mismatch for almost anybody that you're going to put on him. If you put somebody with the speed to keep up with him, they're not going to have the strength. And he's still going to be smarter than 99%. If not at this point in his career, I don't even know if there's going to be many defensive backs he goes up against as has seen as much and has as much experience as he does. So, because I don't think that touchdown, I don't think it was planned that way. I mean, I certainly didn't get the sense from the way that Mahomes and Kelsey talked about it after the game. I mean, it certainly just seemed like one of those moments where those guys just see what's happening. They know what the coverage is. They know where the ball was supposed to go. Kelsey just knows that hey, the defender's going to peel off for Hopkins this direction, and then he sees green grass and goes for it, and Mahomes just knows that Kelsey's going to find the open spot and throws the ball there. That's what happens when you've got two guys who have worked together as long as they have.
We're talking to Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Defensively, the Chiefs sack Russell Wilson 5 times without Chris Jones on the field. And some of that is, the old adage, sacks are a quarterback stat, and Russell Wilson has always been capable of being sacked no matter how good the offensive line was or how poor the defensive line was that was chasing him. But for the Chiefs to do that, rack up the 5 sacks without having Chris Jones, what did that show you about how this defensive front is starting to round into form late in the season?
Yeah, and most importantly, and you really hit on it, which is that it was the front four. I mean, this wasn't one of these games that you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, the Chiefs got a bunch of pressure because they got a couple of sacks from blitzers and from linebackers and safeties. Hey, Mike Dana had probably his best game of the season. Just absolutely, I thought a really dominant performance from him. All 5 of those sacks came from defensive linemen. So, that just shows you that all those guys came together. And if this was, hey, one of these, hey guys, we need to step up this week because we don't have Chris, so everybody needs to give 10% more. And if that's what you got, I mean, what you're hoping is that these guys have got the confidence now to say, wait a minute, we play with 10% more every single week and we get Chris back, think what can happen. I mean, and once again, I mean, maybe it is that critical mass that we've been talking about. Maybe the addition of Charles Omenihu and just giving him that little bit more depth on the edge has really loosened things up for everybody. There's no doubt. I mean, the Chiefs have multiple players on that defensive front that you have to worry about. My partner on the 41 is the Mike podcast, Nick Jacobs, just even talks about even like a guy like Mike Pennell, in the run game, eats up space. He can take up 2 blockers on a pretty consistent basis. And when you've got 2 guys worried about Chris Jones, I mean, these other guys should be winning one-on-one matchups. They hadn't been most of the year, but the last month they have been. I think that's 16 sacks in the last 4 games. That's what this defense is capable of. That's what they've done the last couple of seasons. If they're going to play at this level going into the postseason, I mean, now you're talking about the Chiefs, convincingly having not only one of the best defenses in the league to pair with one of the best offenses, but, a defense is capable of making the big plays that they just hadn't been for the first few months of the season. But for the last quarter of the season, this has looked more like the 22 and 23 defense than anything else.
Matt, got to give you your flowers because the last time we talked last Friday, you said Trent McDuffie's first interception feels like it's going to open the floodgates for him, and wouldn't be surprised if he gets another one against Houston. Well, he got another one against Houston. Then he forces a turnover on Wednesday as well. He strips Pat Freiermuth of the ball that sets up the Kelsey touchdown that effectively ends the game on Wednesday. Got to give you your props. You were right on. Trent McDuffie, already an All-Pro, but he seems to be another guy who's leveling up his play down the stretch.
Yeah, he really is. I think, this has already been a guy who is an all-pro caliber corner, but I think you have. I mean, it's the last quarter of the season. I think that another one of the reasons why this team is producing some turnovers and making big plays is that, McDuffie's now got the confidence that he can make those plays. He's got kind of the monkey off his back. I think he'd missed a couple. I mean, there was a couple of drops that he'd had when the opportunities in the past, and I don't know. I don't know if it was so much that he was really pressing as just, hey, sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. And let's face it, we can make the jokes, but the jokes are true. A lot of guys are corners because they can't catch the football. Otherwise, they'd be wide receivers. And McDuffie, I mean, hey, he's got the short arms. That's the other knock against him. But he is such a talented player. I mean, especially just with his footwork. I mean, that's what makes him the player that he is. There's just not a lot of receivers that can outwork him when it comes to footwork, and that's just why he's always in the right place. His story about how he looked up at the scoreboard and the Jumbotron and saw that the ball was coming his way that Jameis Winston threw and made that interception. I mean, that's just how smart of a player he is. And so, yeah, I always had a feeling that once he got once he got his first interception, he was probably going to just go off on a tear and get a bunch of them. So I don't think he's done yet. I mean, I'm doubling down, Dan. I'm gonna say a postseason interception is coming Trent McDuffie's way.
I like it. Well, we'll have to find what the betting markets have to say about that. A couple of more questions for Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, our Chiefs insider, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Any concern about rust for the Chiefs if they end up giving a bunch of their starters week 18 off? And then, of course, they have the first round bye in the AFC playoffs. It'll end up being something like 23 days before they play a meaningful football game again. Any concerns at all about rust?
For the guys that they're going to rest, probably not. I mean, and we'll see, just how deep it goes against Denver. Obviously you can have 7 guys inactive, but sometimes when the Chiefs play these final games, I mean, it ends up being more like maybe 10 or 12 guys that just don't play any snaps at all. I could certainly see somebody maybe they'll go ahead and let Mahomes play a quarter just to keep him fresh. I mean, I haven't really got a chance to talk to anybody yet about what their plans are since Andy Reid just kind of gave everybody a couple of days off after that win against the Steelers. But there's no doubt. I mean, guys like Travis Kelce, Chris Jones with the calf injury, anybody that's dealing with an injury right now, that's going to pay off. And we've talked about, we talked about the narrative of rust before, but I think when we look back on it, you look back at a lot of these cases of teams flaming out, maybe in the playoffs because they had a longer break and maybe they'd had a bye and then they rested guys in week 17. I mean, I know this happened to the Colts a lot, but you know what? I mean, Colts were always a flawed team. I mean, they usually didn't have a defense. And most of those seasons, the only thing that they had was Peyton Manning and maybe a receiver. Same thing with the Ravens. I mean, they've been flawed teams. This is different. I mean, when you've got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I'm not worried about rust with those guys. And even if they were to come out a little bit sluggish for the first quarter, I don't think with whomever they see in that divisional round, when you look at all the seeds that it could be 4 through 7, I don't think that that's going to be enough to hurt the Chiefs.
Last thing, Matt, we got about 30 seconds. The players of the game on Wednesday on the NFL on Netflix received red velvet cake footballs. Are you a yay or a nay on the red velvet cake? Would you have gone to town on that football in front of God and everybody at Acrisure Stadium? Because I'm going to tell you, I would have.
I'm a nay. I'm not a red velvet guy.
Wow.
So I would have been more rude than Mahomes. I wouldn't have just said it was, I was trying to watch my weight. I would have just said, I'm not a red velvet guy, thanks, but I'll try and pick this chocolate off, but you can have the rest of it.
Fair enough. Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com, joins us every Friday here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, have a happy new year. Great celebration, my friend. We'll talk to you next Friday before a very meaningless Week 18 Chiefs game.
Sounds great, my friend. Take care, everybody. Have a great new year.
That is Matt Derrick. We'll take a timeout, come back, wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk after this. Wrapping up this first of 3 hours today on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero with you solo the rest of the day, and I guess the week. Still to come on the program, our Bet Prairie Band picks. Prairie Band Sportsbook 580 Sports Talk picks contest continues. I've got to have a strong finish to avoid a losing season. Brendan has fallen behind Spencer and now needs to rally. And looks like Spencer's going to miss the deadline on these picks unless he emailed them to me. So I got to check my email during the break and see if Spencer sent me any picks or if he, now with a winning record off a 5-0 week, is going to leave you all hanging. He made you money last week. He made you rich. And now he's going to leave you hanging? Kind of rude of him, really, when you think about it, when you get right down to it. But no, our Prairie Band Sportsbook 580 Sports Talk picks contest continues. Also, we crown a December champion for What Is Wrong With You when we complete the field for our Tournament of Failed Champions, which is coming up next week. The Year in What Is Wrong With You on Monday. We're off next Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, the 2-day 2024 championship event of What Is Wrong With You. Plus, Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com will join us. That's all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online worldwide at 580WIBW.com, and live in living color on our YouTube stream. Check us out on our channel, 580 Sports Talk. You can also watch us on Facebook, WIBW News. If you're not at work today, took the day off, you can still watch the show. You don't need a browser open at your desk to watch the show. Put us on your big screen television, on your Roku or your Google TV or your Fire Stick, on the YouTube app. Search 580 Sports Talk. Or just put us on your phone, on your mobile device. You can do that too. Check out the program today. However, you are consuming 580 Sports Talk today. Welcome, friends. Welcome, ball knowers. Appreciate you being here on 580 Sports Talk. I am Dan Lucero. Once again, I am solo dolo for the rest of 2024 with Brendan Dworzinski on paternity leave and Spencer Dupuis on vacation. We have today's show. We have Monday's show, and that'll do it for the calendar year. Monday's show, a full year in review. In the process of pulling some clips from shows throughout the year, we'll recap everything that happened in the last 12 months of sports on a local level, on a national level. Matt Verderam will join us to talk NFL football. And, of course, in the 4 o'clock hour, you won't want to miss the year in What Is Wrong With You. We're going to crown a December champion here in about 20 minutes or so. Figure out who our final entrant in the Tournament of Failed Champions will be. And then on Monday, we're going to run them all back as they originally appeared on the program for the first time. The year in What Is Wrong With You, part of our year in review show on Monday. So we're excited for that. I'm excited for that. Hope you'll join me on Monday. Then Tuesday, we'll take the day off. We'll bring you more bowl season radio. We're going to bring you the Texas Bowl that day. I believe that's Baylor and LSU. And we'll bring you that broadcast on here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. Then on New Year's Day, we're taking the day off as well. We'll be back at it on January 2nd. The gang will be all here. So we'll have everybody back from vacation, from paternity leave, the whole thing, and start the year anew with the full cast and crew on 580 Sports Talk. Again, coming up this hour, we will crown a December champion on What Is Wrong With You. We will also hear from Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. He will join us for a couple of days late version of the Wildcat Wrap-Up, but it's a good day to do one after Kansas State rallies from 17 points down to win the Rate Bowl in Phoenix and finish their season 9-4. We'll have some more to say about that game later on in the show. More to say about the Chiefs beating the Steelers 29-10 on Christmas Day. Your comments, your questions, your thoughts, your concerns, bring them to the program. You can comment on the YouTube live chat if you are watching the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. There's a live chat window in the browser. There's a live chat option if you're watching on a mobile device. You can interact with me and with your fellow listeners throughout the program. You can also text the show. We'd love to hear from you on the text line today, 785-272-9429. I want to hear how your holidays were, how your Christmas was, or maybe you're celebrating. Hanukkah has begun, Kwanzaa has begun, whatever holiday you might be celebrating. I want to hear all about it. Want to hear your thoughts on the Chiefs, your thoughts on K-State. And we're definitely going to want your votes for the December champion of What Is Wrong With You. That is still to come on this hour of the show. We're going to start the hour, though, with our Prairie Band Sportsbook 580 Sports Talk Picks Contest, which continues into another week, brought to you by Prairie Band Sportsbook inside the Prairie Band Casino and Resort in Mayetta, just inside that main entrance, just a hair to your right, like at 2 o'clock, let's say, 1 or 2 o'clock. You walk in, stare straight ahead, that's 12 o'clock, it's about 2 o'clock to your right. Walk right in, over a dozen TVs, some comfortable chairs. There's a bar walking distance. And, of course, there's a place where you can place your bets. for bowl season, for the NFL playoffs. Get your futures bets down. Get your futures bets down for champions of 2025. We'll do some predictions for next year on Monday's show. And enjoy the games. Enjoy a stress-free weekend of NFL football with the Chiefs already having done their business. Enjoy the bowl games. Enjoy the college football playoff games on New Year's Day at Prairie Band Sportsbook. Bet your way with Prairie Band Sportsbook. The standings undertook a bit of a shakeup last week because Spencer went 5-0 on his picks last week. Spencer's now 41-40 on the season. He is a game above 500, and by winning percentage, that makes him our front runner. He has surpassed Brendan, who, being on paternity leave, took a couple of weeks off of the picks. It is 33-34-1 overall. I had a winning week last week. That's good. The bad is I'm in last place. 38-42-1 is my overall record going into this week's picks. Now, Spencer, somewhere in suburban Virginia, has not submitted picks for this week. And it may have been strategic. Because, again, win percentage is going to determine who wins this thing. And Spencer didn't get any picks in, so he is over 500 by win percentage. If Brendan doesn't have a winning week, Spencer's going to stay in first place without lifting a finger. If I don't have a winning week, Spencer's going to stay in first place. So that might be strategic on Spencer's part. That or he's just enjoying his vacation time. It's not mandatory to interrupt your vacation to make these picks. I'm always going to make picks. I'm here all the time. But I made some picks today. Brendan, however, he's back in the saddle. After a couple of weeks off, 3 of them to be precise, for paternity leave, he has submitted some picks for this week because he's now in second place, and he wants to try and surge back ahead of Spencer in the standings. So we'll start with Brendan's picks first. Again, to remind you of the rules. 2 college football picks against the spread, 2 NFL picks against the spread, and a wild card pick that can be anything. Total, player prop, another spread pick, whatever you want it to be from either college or pro football. Now, the college games are all of the bowls this weekend, and then the college football playoff games that will take place, the quarterfinals. There's the 1 New Year's Eve, and then there are the 3 on New Year's Day. And those were all eligible to be picked for this week's edition of the picks contest. So let's get these picks in, and we'll start with Brendan's picks. In college football, in the Alamo Bowl, Brendan is laying 4 points with the Colorado Buffaloes against the BYU Cougars. I'll have more to say about this particular headline when we get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines at the 5 o'clock hour. But Colorado has gone above and beyond to make sure that both Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter play in this bowl game, to such an extent that they have taken out insurance policies, which are being reported as the largest insurance policies ever taken out on college football players for just this one game, to protect against injury should anything happen to 2 players who are projected to be potentially top 5 picks in the upcoming NFL draft. And of course, it has to be the biggest and the most of anything that's ever happened because it's Deion Sanders, right? And everything's gold-plated with Deion Sanders. But the knock-on effect of this is that Colorado's going to be at full strength for this game. Brendan is betting that a full-strength Colorado will be at least 4 points better than BYU in the Alamo Bowl. He's also got a pick for one of the college football quarterfinals. It's the number 1 seed Oregon and the number 8 seed Ohio State. That's the Rose Bowl. That at least feels good, right? Like, I know these 2 teams are in the same conference now, but at least Ohio State and Oregon in the Rose Bowl, there's a familiarity to that I can cope with as a college football fan. That feels natural. Kind of like Notre Dame, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Like, that feels natural. I can get with that. That's fine with me. Penn State, Boise State is a very Fiesta Bowl game too. That's the Friday night game, the Fiesta Bowl, Penn State and Boise State. So at least the bowl, man, at least they tried to make this make a little sense. Anyway, to give you an idea of how much the seeding for the college football playoff is messed up and how much they're going to have to reevaluate, frankly, how they do this moving forward, because It's not good that your number 8 seed is favored and your number 5 seed is favored and your number 6 seed is favored. The teams that have the buys should be at the advantage. And I like that winning a conference regular season championship gives you something, does give you an edge. But I don't know. Either they're going to have to reseed or they're going to have to just seed the field and give buys to the top 4 seeds. Conference results be damned. Because a lot of these spreads are pretty one-sided. We'll get to one later on that's even more one-sided than this one. But even though they lost to Oregon earlier this year, Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite against Oregon at Autzen Stadium, at the Rose Bowl. And the first meeting was at Autzen Stadium. Oregon won that game. So Ohio State, neutral field, 2.5-point favorite. Brendan's on the dog. He likes Oregon to cover that 2.5. I think I'm with him there. I think I like that pick for him. Brendan's NFL picks. He's got Carolina +8 at Tampa Bay. Buccaneers coming off of that inexplicable Sunday night loss to the Cowboys. He's also going to lay 6.5 with Miami at Cleveland. It's a cold weather game for the Dolphins. I don't love that, but Cleveland has absolutely put a stamp on the season and mailed it in. That is Brendan's lock of the week, the Dolphins -6.5. Thinks the Dolphins have more to play for than the Browns. That's probably correct. Flip side, it's Tua in the cold. And Brendan's wild card pick for the week, he's going under in Arizona and Los Angeles. The Rams and the Cardinals going under the total there, 47.5. My picks this week. I have a pick in a non-playoff bowl game. Got my eye on Tuesday afternoon's Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. What a terrible combination. If you're eating Cheez-Its and drinking orange juice, that's gross. It's very orange, but it's also very gross sounding. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't pair Cheez-Its with citrus. Not my get down. Anyway, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in Orlando, South Carolina and Illinois. I will lay 9 with South Carolina. I think they're really good. I think they were probably, by the end of the year, they were playing better than any team that didn't make the playoff. And I think they're going to flex their muscle against an Illinois team that I don't think has the horses to keep up with South Carolina. I think a lot of times that the SEC speed or whatever you want to call it, the talent differential, I think it can be overstated. I don't think this is one of those cases. I think South Carolina is way better than Illinois. And I think South Carolina is going to win. And I'm so confident that I'll lay 9 points. The other game I am betting in college football is one of the playoff semifinals or quarterfinals, rather. It's the Peach Bowl, also sponsored by Chick-fil-A, Texas and Arizona State. Texas is a 13.5-point favorite. I'm taking the Sun Devils plus 13.5. I think they can cover. And here's why I think they can cover. I think that they can shorten the game with Cam Scadaboo running the football. I think they can make it a low possession game, play 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and stay close to Texas in this game. I think it's disrespectful that Arizona State is a 2-touchdown underdog, so I will take the points. 13.5 with Arizona State. I took Clemson to cover against Texas last week. They were a 4th and goal from the 1 away from covering that spread. Hopefully I have some better luck with the Sun Devils. My NFL picks. I got this line at +7. It's since moved, but it's moved in a direction that I really don't understand. The Eagles have ruled out Jalen Hurts for Sunday in this classic NFC East rivalry against the Dallas Cowboys. But Philadelphia is now a 7.5-point favorite over Dallas. And look, I'm not confusing Dallas for a particularly good team, but their defense has been excellent the last couple of weeks as they've gotten everybody healthy and back on the field. And I think they can give Kenny Pickett hell. I think they can bow up on the run, load the box, and then on third down, unleash hell on Kenny Pickett. I think Dallas can keep it within a touchdown. Cooper Rush, also quiet as it's kept, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception in his last handful of games, taking care of the football. No CD Lamb, obviously that's a big deal, but I think Dallas can keep it within a touchdown. So I'll take the Cowboys on the road, +7. Also, a game that's effectively a pick-em. The spread is 0.5 point between Green Bay and Minnesota. When in doubt, take the team that has more talent, is playing better. For me, that's Green Bay. I think they go on the road and they beat Minnesota. Jordan Love and the Packers are red hot. They can do whatever they want on offense, and I think they're going to go into U.S. Bank Stadium and win that game. So a couple of road dogs for me in my NFL picks. Then my wild card pick, I think the Sugar Bowl is going to be gross. I think it's going to be drag you down into the mud and fight over a knife kind of football between Notre Dame and Georgia, because I think that's what those two teams are. And I think Georgia is especially that now that they're down to Gunnar Stockton at quarterback with the season-ending injury to Carson Beck. I think this is going to be a slugfest, a defensive-minded game. The total is 44. I like the under. So I'm going under in the Sugar Bowl. No picks for Spencer Dupuis. May have been strategic. Again, you can make your picks and bet your way with Prairie Band Sportsbook inside of Prairie Band Casino and Resort and Mayetta. Visit prairieband.com/sportsbook for more details. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we will crown a December champion of What Is Wrong With You on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. So what is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? We are moments away from filling out the field for our What is Wrong with You Tournament of Failed Champions, which will take place next week. The champions will be introduced. We'll have a parade of champions, so to speak. Our What is Wrong with You year in review on Monday's show. And then Thursday and Friday, we'll get those 12 stories down to one champion for 2024 for What is Wrong with You. We had 4 weekly winners off the air. We have trimmed to 2. We have already voted for victories in our semifinals, which means we say goodbye to Monday's winner, the two-armed bandit, the gentleman from Maine who defrauded an elderly couple as a contractor, was caught at a casino and then asked the cops, "Hey, can you guys chill for a second? I'm trying to win bail money on this slot machine. Can you let me live for a second or two here? Trying to hit the get back." Minor setback, major comeback coming as soon as I hit this slot machine. 45-year-old Jason Bryant, we called him the two-armed bandit. I think that was Vance, came up with that one in the YouTube live chat. That one has been eliminated, as has our professional drinker. He was last week's wire-to-wire champion, gentleman in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, who caused a multi-vehicle accident. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. When asked by the officer if he had been drinking, he told the officer he had had probably 10 drinks, but said it was okay because he was like a professional drinker. Who am I to argue with somebody who could blow a .326 and stand up? Never mind get behind the wheel of a car. He's obviously some kind of professional. On the flip side, though, that's not a thing. And he was arrested and hauled off to the drunk tank, and then after that, hopefully jail. So we have eliminated those 2 stories by unanimous consent. We are down to a final 2. Our first semifinalist for December forgot my fake ID. Central Florida man arrested after he accidentally forgot the fake identity he used to evade law enforcement. The incident occurred when the suspect, who had previously provided a false name to police, was pulled over by Polk County deputies for another traffic violation. During this stop, he mistakenly used the same false identity, but was unable to recall key details about it. He also gave the wrong name in the course of things. 54-year-old Richard Hallmark of Winter Haven told the sergeant that his name was actually Robert Hallmark. As it turns out, if you're going to use a pseudonym, perhaps for the sake of covering your tracks, you should use one that doesn't have the same first initial and last name as your actual name. Authorities quickly discovered that Richard Hallmark had been using a fabricated name to avoid prior legal issues, including warrants for his arrest. After further investigation, he was identified and placed under arrest. He now faces additional charges for obstruction and identity fraud. So he had his story straight all this time, and then he couldn't keep it straight for one day. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. One day, one slip. One little slip. And also one terrible fake name. No, Richard is my father. I'm Robert Hallmark. Yeah, we're not buying that. Why do you look just like Richard? Why is this picture we have on file of Richard Hallmark a picture of literally you? So that's forgot my fake ID. The other December semifinalists, say hello again to the woman with the golden gun. 30-year-old Liliana Goodson, who's been sentenced to a year in Australian jail because she flew from the United States to Australia with a gold-plated pistol in her luggage, despite claiming she brought it with her for protection. Goodson pled guilty to charges of illegally importing an unauthorized firearm and illegally importing ammunition. 12-month jail term in Sydney. 4 months will be served in full-time custody. She was originally arrested April of last year. Customs officers uncovered the 24-karat gold-plated pistol, which is worth about $3,000, in her luggage. The detail I can't get past here is that she was traveling from the United States to Australia so that she could attend clown school. clown school. I am Googling Australian clown school right now. And it does appear that the Clown Institute does in fact have its own website. It's at theclowninstitute.com. Now, I cannot swear to you where the Clown Institute is located. It is run by a woman named Alicia Gonzalez. She has, this might be it. This might be the one she was going to, because it looks like that she is based in Sydney. What if I want to sign up here? You could do online clowning programs, public clowning, finding your fool, weekend class is Saturday, monthly clown class. This is a whole thing. Theclowninstitute.com. Man, this is a lot. Anyhow, she was going to clown school and thought she needed her gun for protection. When asked at the airport if she was carrying any prohibited items with her, which is common if you've ever been through customs, Goodson says, "No, I'm not carrying anything prohibited." They fired back, "Hey, what about this gun? What do you know about this gun?" And Goodson's response was, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." A review of Goodson's phone revealed she had searched online, "Can I have a gun in my suitcase?" and set a calendar entry with a note reminding her to put gun in suitcase. Australia doesn't really play about their guns. Like, we're a little more, I guess, what's the word? Permissive. We're a little more permissive in the US of A when it comes to our guns. But one thing we've got in common with Australia is you can't take one on an airplane. You have to declare it. It's a whole thing. Bad deal. I don't know how her Google search did not lead her in a smarter direction. Maybe that's that broken Google AI she was dealing with. Who can say? But woman brought a golden gun with her to clown school. Now she's going to jail. I think you guys could probably guess what direction I'm leaning with my vote just based on the reaction. The ones that have little details like that make you laugh are always my favorite. But I'm turning it over to the wisdom of crowds today. I'm turning it over to you, the listener. The text line is 785-272-9429. And if you're watching on YouTube, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can jump into the live chat and make your vote. Forgot my fake ID in one corner. Very funny that he forgot the fake name he was using and used an extremely obvious fake name that allowed police to directly connect him with who he actually was. It's a good story. The woman with the golden gun in the other corner. She brought her gun on an airplane traveling overseas to go to clown school. Are Australian clowns particularly scary? Like, I don't know. I've never been to Australia. It'd be a cool country to go visit. I'd like to go, watch the water in the toilet bowl swirl the other way. That'd be cool. Maybe see a kangaroo like in person. That'd be pretty sick. The Sydney Opera House is beautiful. I hear Sydney's really cool. But maybe clowns there are super dangerous. Maybe the clown culture in Australia is that you don't want to mess with them. You better have that thing on you if you're going to run up on some Australian clowns. She was afraid she was going to get on their turf. She was going to go down there and be so good at clowning that she was going to dominate the clown circuit in Australia, and these Australian clowns were going to run up on her, and she was going to need that golden gun. That, or she'd been hearing all her life about the dingo that ate the baby and figured she runs up on a dingo, she better be packing heat. I don't know. There's no good excuse. She's doing a year in jail because she brought a gun made of gold to clown school across the Pacific Ocean. Which one will it be? Your vote counts. Get your vote in on the YouTube live chat. Get your vote in on the text line, 785-272-9429. While you vote, we're going to get Tim Fitzgerald on the line to talk K-State sports. The Wildcat Wrap-Up is next on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline on a special Friday edition of the Wildcat Wrap-Up is Tim Fitzgerald, publisher at GoPowerCat.com. He's got his finger on the pulse of K-State Nation better than anybody. He and his staff cover the Cats as part of the 24/7 Sports Network at GoPowerCat.com. Fitz joins us every Wednesday, typically, for the Wildcat Wrap-Up, but we thought it was only appropriate to get him on today after K-State's Rate Bowl victory. We'll get to the game first, Fitz, but first and foremost, how was Phoenix?
It was good. It was pleasant weather, not too hot. Pretty dead downtown. I stayed downtown. Ryan Gilbert and I stayed downtown, and there wasn't much going on down there. It was really quiet. So it was a good trip. It was a weird bowl trip because usually you spend up to a week at a bowl destination with all the different press conferences and goings on, but they had a media day on Tuesday, off day for Wednesday because it's Christmas, and then they played the game. So it was pretty efficient getting in and out.
What was the turnout like? That's a cavernous stadium, Chase Field. Even in its baseball configuration, it's just a huge. I've been to it for a couple of baseball games. It's huge, and it feels like it's hard to fill. And it was always going to be hard to fill or get a really good crowd for a bowl game the day after Christmas. But what did you feel about the K-State turnout to the Rate Bowl?
Honestly, I thought there was more people than I expected. I don't know what the number might be, but it was good. I mean, by any measurement of how fans turn out for bowl games, it was pretty darn good. And, maybe by the K-State measurement, it wasn't as good as normal. But they were loud and proud and I think played a role in K-State, fighting back and finding a way to win them. But kudos to Rutgers. They had a number of fans there, too. And that's a long trip, but people made it, and they saw a pretty darn good game.
It was. As bowl games go, that's been one of the better ones and what's been a really entertaining bowl season so far. K-State rallies back, gets the win, 44-41 over Rutgers last night. And the ESPN odds said that Rutgers' odds of winning the game when they were up 34-17 in the third quarter were 95%. So K-State had a long way to go to come back in that game. When did you, watching the game live, when did you feel like it was possible for K-State to complete that comeback and win that game?
Well, Dan, I thought they had to score in their first drive of the second half, but they didn't. And then they gave up another touchdown to go down 17. Now they finally scored, and they went for two for some reason that we still can't sort out. And they missed. At no point did I really think they were going to come all the way back until they got within a touchdown and, got within a single score. And sure enough, they did it. They just really played really focused football in that second half after a pretty shaky first half, particularly on defense. And I think this was the most kind of laser focused this team has been this season in the second half. They just looked like they knew what they wanted. They knew what they had to do to go get it, and it wasn't going to be easy. But once they got cooking, they were going to do enough to win that game, and they did.
What in particular changed on defense from your perspective? Because they did give up the 27 points in the first half. They give up a touchdown right out of the third quarter. And you're thinking at that point, K-State's doing some really nice things on offense, but how are they ever going to get a stop? And then they only give up 7 the rest of the game, and it was on a short field, and they get the stops they needed to down the stretch. What in particular got better, or what changed for you?
Well, they cranked up a little more pressure and make the quarterback a little bit more uncomfortable. I think that helped a lot, but they made some changes in the defensive backfield and went young. They went really young in that late stages of the game, and those guys held up really well. They ran with receivers. They made it difficult to complete passes. They finally got that quarterback off rhythm, and it took a while, but once they did, K-State kind of took over that game. I thought it was really impressive how they took control of things and then just wouldn't yield back, even though Rutgers was still plugging away and managed to get in the end zone off of another bad special teams play by Kansas State. But the defense in a bad position, but the offense just kept finding an answer.
Tim Fitzgerald is our guest, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. This is the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, publisher of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find him on Twitter at Life of Fitz. And one thing that you pointed out on Twitter last night, Fitz, and we talked about it at the top of the show today, the secondary for K-State was really young last night. Like Marquise Siegel and Keenan Garber got their snaps, and those are veteran guys, seniors, but a lot of freshmen and redshirt freshmen and sophomores out there for K-State in the defensive backfield. And those guys were immense in the second half. This is Sean Rich. Daniel Cobbs had the interception. Dominic McAllister is extremely, not Dominic McAllister. Got him conflated with Kobe McAllister. Donovan McIntosh is extremely intriguing to me as a 6'3" cornerback. Those guys seem to kind of do a little bit of growing up just in that second half. What's your evaluation of where this secondary can grow from what was kind of a disappointing year for the group as a unit in 2024, but you're going to turn it over to maybe some young guys next year?
Yeah, I looked out there and I'm looking at my my depth chart trying to figure out who's all out there, because I realized all of a sudden neither Siegel or they just had to have their main safeties out there. We got Fabris and Wesley Fair was playing down the stretch, and two really young corners, and BJ Payne was the only kind of veteran out there, and they just played extremely well. And that may be just something that happened briefly, but it sure does offer a lot of promise. And they're bringing in some guys through the portal too, so we'll see how that shakes out. But it was a really promising offering from some young players, and I think they're going to be pretty good.
Speaking of pretty good, Dylan Edwards. That was kind of what we wanted to see from K-State with regards to the use of Dylan Edwards all season, getting him the ball on the perimeter, yes, but also trusting him to get some tough yards and throwing the ball to him out of the backfield. That was the total Dylan Edwards package, and could not have been a splashier debut as far as that went.
Yeah, no, it was impressive, and I thought they did a great job of using him in a number of different ways, and mostly running the ball, but they threw to him too, and they targeted him a number of times, only, I think, completed twice. And just having that flexibility from Dylan is going to be really important to this team. But boy, I think he proved his worth as a running back. He never really got loose as a running back this season, but he did in this game a couple times, and he outran people. He got through holes, and I'm telling you what, if you let him get through your linebackers, then you're in big trouble. I mean, if he gets through that second layer and gets into your secondary, there's a lot of space for him to work with, and it's going to be really difficult to chase him down.
The theory that I threw out there, Fitz, I don't know how much truth there is to this or not. You can kind of walk through it with me, but DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards are different enough as players that because Giddens was so good in his role doing what he did, it was tough to take him off the field and then put Dylan Edwards in a similar role and do the things you were asking DJ Giddens to do that were working for the better part of the season. It seems to me that Edwards and Joe Jackson have a chance to complement each other a little better because they have a more similar skill set. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I think their running game is going to be in pretty good hands. What was different here is they looked at Rutgers. That's an extremely big defensive front seven, and they decided, well, we're going to run at you a little bit, but we're also going to run around you. And once they established that they were going to get to the edge, that opened up the middle, and that's where Dylan really kind of got after him a little bit. I thought K-State really did a great job of building success in one area of the running game and making it pay off in another. And I thought the play calling by Connor Riley was outstanding. And I think a big part of that, honestly, was that he had to call some different plays, because without DJ Giddens, you're going to approach the offense a little bit different. So that probably changed what Rutgers scouted, and what happened were two different things. And also it really emphasized K-State's speed on offense, which is really notable.
We're talking to Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com on the Floating Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. This is a Friday edition of a Wednesday staple, the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on the program. Again, Fitz and the staff covering K-State at GoPowerCat.com. Become a VIP member at 24/7 Sports today and get all of their insider info. Jace Brown sets the sophomore record for receiving yards at K-State after his performance last night. And it's been quite a last month in terms of the perception of Jace Brown being maybe a guy who was a little bit difficult this season, had a tough year, disappeared from the offense, was all but headed for the transfer portal. And now it seems like he's a guy that, again, you feel like maybe you can build a passing game around moving forward and can be the kind of like stud, for lack of a better term, that K-State has maybe lacked at wide receiver for a good while.
Yeah, he's special. He really is. And, I think the ongoing concern for K-State fans needs to be not that players are going to leave, but players are going to be so tempted by some offer that they will leave. The portal's still open through the weekend here, and we'll see if anyone else hops in, how bad it gets for K-State. But I think Jace is sticking around, which he's talked a lot about leaving, and I think that's really good for K-State. I think him and Avery Johnson have a special connection, and it's kind of Avery and his guys if Jace sticks around, because I think it's going to look like a really complete, team effort when they win games like it did yesterday. I just think they've got a lot of different weapons within that circle of trust of Avery Johnson.
And it brings us all the way back around to Avery as kind of the final piece of this. And I thought it was a solid game from Avery last night. Certainly not perfect. The interception was inexplicable. There were a couple of other plays that he left on the table. But when K-State needed those final yards to salt the game away, they trusted Avery to make the play, and he made the play. He was good on the ground. He threw 3 touchdowns. He connected with his running backs out of the backfield for scores, found Garrett Oakley for a touchdown as well, helped lead that comeback. What's the next step? The step that Avery's got to make in the spring, in the summer, in fall practice into next year to make sure that he gets to the level of player that K-State will need him to be to achieve some of those conference championship aspirations they'll go into next year with?
I think he absolutely has to get a little more mass on him, maybe 10 to 15 pounds, and really zero in on that completion percentage, trying to be a little bit more accurate of a passer. He goes through kind of fits where he's not nearly as accurate as he needs to be, and other times he's just right on the money. And continue to work on that speed, because that's kind of what makes him different, is having that kind of speed that he's as fast as anyone on the field. So, but mostly he just needs to be more durable and just get more polished. And I think his upside's enormous. People have been upset with him. Yeah, he didn't. I think he ended up with 10 interceptions this season. The problem was some of them were so ill-timed. Maybe early in the game, maybe late in the game, maybe, or for halftime. They seem to really switch momentum quite a bit. So not only does he need to cut down on those turnovers, but maybe make them a little bit less meaningful, because, boy, they flip the outcome of some games.
Couple more questions for Tim Fitzgerald. Go powercat.com on the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, who's happier never to have to listen to questions about a curse of alternate uniforms again, you or Chris Kleiman?
Well, Chris Kleiman, I'm not going to be done asking him. Look, the players said after the game they'd wanted it all year, which doesn't surprise me, and I'm glad they came through with it. I would encourage K-State, and I'm going to talk to them about this. Just set out a plan. Don't live week to week. Figure out what you're going to wear. For example, Baylor they release their schedule with notification. They've got like color coding of what they'll be wearing: helmet, jersey, pants, every game. So fans know it takes kind of maybe the overexcitement over doing something different. And I think that really making it more common is really the key for Kansas State. But Chris Kleiman was very happy about getting a win in an alternate uniform.
And when you do have that steak dinner with Coach Kleiman, what kind of steaks are we doing here?
You know what? I've thought of that. I don't know. I need to find out what he likes. And man, I got some pressure on me. My trigger's not working. I got to get that fixed.
Yeah.
The guy just invited himself to my house.
You're going to be IOU for a little bit with Tim Fitzgerald and Chris Kleiman having a steak and beer summit and talking 2-point conversion strategies. Fitz, let's talk about K-State basketball. Oh, we're out of time. Oh, so sorry. We'll have to do that another time. Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, joining us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, always a pleasure. Thanks for making the time for us. Have a happy new year. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, my friend.
That is Tim Fitzgerald. We'll take one final break, come back, wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk right after this. .456 on 580 Sports Talk, wrapping up this second hour of 3 this afternoon. One more hour to come on the program. But before we get there, it's unanimous. Our December What Is Wrong With You champion is the woman with the golden gun. Unanimous on the text line, unanimous in the YouTube live chat. The woman with the golden gun advances to the 2024 Tournament of Failed Champions. Again, we will rerun all 12 monthly champions as they originally aired on the show on Monday's edition of this program. Our year in review show will also include a year in What Is Wrong With You. We'll do it in the 4 o'clock hour, so block out that hour of your day. We'll start around 4:20 and we'll just roll. The timing is not, it's accidental. If you think there's a correlation there, it's not. It's just kind of what we've always done. We never intended for it to be a 4:20 thing, but it just is now. So join us on Monday for the year in What Is Wrong With You and relive the woman with the golden gun and all of the other monthly champions for this year. But we've got one more hour on this Friday. Got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, lots to cover in headlines. Some final thoughts on K-State's win in the Rate Bowl and the Chiefs' Christmas Day triumph over the Steelers, and a look ahead to the weekend in sports. That's all coming up. Stay with us. One more hour on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Third and final hour of this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk on the sports voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and live in living color on our YouTube stream. Our YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, we need two of you to be heroes in the next 54 minutes so we can get to 700 subscribers before the weekend. Why do we need that? Because it would feed our egos, frankly. But also because it would be very funny to do it while Brendan Dworzynski remained on paternity leave and thus not able to help us with our subscription drive. That has been an ongoing bit on the show. You know that if you've listened long enough, that whenever Brendan leaves, we set new subscriber benchmarks. So we need 2 new subscribers to the YouTube channel. It's real simple. You just search for our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and you tap subscribe. We're at 698. We need 2 more to get to 700. I know there's 2 heroes out there. It's the Friday after Christmas, before another holiday week. Call it a post-Christmas miracle. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already and check out the show. Check out the live chat on YouTube as well. You can also watch us on Facebook at WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero. Mentioned that Brendan Dworzynski is on paternity leave. Spencer Dupuis is on vacation. 1 more hour with you today and this week here on 580 Sports Talk. Welcome, friends. Welcome, ball knowers. Appreciate you being along for the show today. Text line is open. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Love to hear from you. You can also, as I mentioned, get in the live chat if you are watching on YouTube and interact not just with your hosts or host, as the case may be today, but also with your fellow listeners. Always appreciate when the community comes together on 580 Sports Talk. And we've got 1 more hour of sports to talk about. We're going to get back into the Rate Bowl and the Chiefs winning on Christmas Day. Have some final thoughts on both of those games that we will get to in a little bit. Also, look ahead to the football weekend to come. Chock full of football on your television. But will any of it be any good? Wouldn't hold out much hope for the NFL slate, if we're being honest. But we'll look at the bowl games, too. We'll tell you what's worth watching and what maybe really isn't for this football weekend to come on the show. Plus your texts, your comments, all that good stuff as we go along for 1 more hour. We open our 580 Sports Talk headlines, which we do at the start of every 5 o'clock hour, with a story that is of big enough importance to have led the CBS News that we air at the top of the hour on 580 WIBW. Some sad news from the sports broadcasting world today, as Greg Gumbel has passed away at the age of 78. He had been fighting cancer for quite some time. Gumbel's family confirmed the news in a statement, saying it is with profound sadness that we share the passing of our beloved husband and father, Greg Gumbel. He passed away peacefully, surrounded by much love after a courageous battle with cancer. Greg approached his illness like one would expect he would, with stoicism, grace, and positivity. He leaves behind a legacy of love, inspiration, and dedication to over 50 extraordinary years in the sports broadcast industry, and his iconic voice will never be forgotten. Greg's memory will forever be treasured by his family, dearest friends, colleagues, and all who loved him. CBS Sports President and CEO David Burson issued this statement from CBS Sports. The CBS Sports family is devastated by the passing of Greg Gumbel. There has never been a finer gentleman in all of television. He was beloved and respected by those of us who had the honor to call him a friend and colleague. A tremendous broadcaster and gifted storyteller, Greg led one of the most remarkable and groundbreaking sports broadcasting careers of all time. He was a familiar and welcoming voice for fans across many sports, including the NFL and March Madness, highlighted by the Super Bowl and Final Four. Greg broke barriers and set the standard for others to follow. It's an extremely sad day for all of us at CBS Sports and the entire sports community. We will miss Greg dearly and send our deepest condolences to his wife, Marcy, daughter, Michelle, and his entire family. Greg Gumbel had as said in the statement, a groundbreaking career. One of the first really prominent African-American voices in sports broadcasting. And that only begins to scratch the surface of the impact that he made on the business. He did just about everything and did everything well. Hosted the Olympics, hosted the NFL Today, hosted March Madness coverage. For me, that is the lasting image of Greg Gumbel. That is what I will think of when I think of him or hear his name. I will think about Selection Sunday. And I will think about the bracket is about to be read and revealed. And Greg Gumbel is going to tell us who the number 1 seeds are. And now Greg Gumbel is going to give us the Midwest region, and then he's going to hand it off to Clark Kellogg. Gumbel worked for CBS from October 1989 through May 1994, then went to NBC Sports as a host and play-by-play announcer before returning to CBS Sports in 1998, where he finished his career. Very sad news. And March Madness Selection Sunday is going to feel a lot different without Greg Gumbel's voice as a part of it. So very sad news, and thoughts and prayers to the family, the friends, the colleagues, the loved ones of Greg Gumbel, dead today at 78. Moving on with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Big news from the Kansas Athletics Department today as legendary volleyball coach Ray Bichard is calling it a career. 27 seasons at the helm of Kansas volleyball took that program to heights they had never before reached. 13 NCAA tournament appearances. The program had never been before he arrived on campus. That list of tournament appearances includes a run to the Final Four in 2015, a year in which he was named the National Coach of the Year, a 496 and 313 record coaching the Jayhawks, and in a career that included an incredible tenure at Barton Community College, where he went to 10 NJCAA Final Fours, 1,212 career coaching wins for Ray Bichard. 27 seasons at KU, and announced today that he would be stepping down. From the press release, a quote from the coach: "It's been the honor of a lifetime to fulfill the role as head volleyball coach at the University of Kansas for the last 27 years. This professional journey was made possible by a supportive administration, a coaching staff that worked tirelessly and together, and by countless young women who competed with grit and demonstrated grace while representing the university with class. I'm proud of what we accomplished during my time at Kansas. We built a program that was nationally competitive and nationally respected." A statement from athletic director Travis Goff: "Ray Bichard is a University of Kansas icon and has had one of the most influential and accomplished careers in college volleyball. We are forever grateful for the incredible impact he made on so many in our athletic department, with his student athletes being at the forefront. Coach B enriched the lives of countless people and is the architect of a program that has flourished on and off the court throughout his tenure. We will miss him dearly and will work with the same intensity and passion he coached with to continue the legacy he built." Press release goes on to say there will be a national search for Bichard's replacement, but they are gigantic shoes to fill. As again, he inherited a program that had never been to the NCAA tournament, took them 13 times in 27 years, and again in 2015 took them all the way to the national semifinals. Tip of the cap to a Northwest Kansas native, Grinnell, Kansas, to be exact, Ray Bichard, 27 great years at the University of Kansas. Speaking of coaching retirements, as we move on our 580 Sports Talk headlines, over the week or over the last couple of days, Miami head basketball coach Jim Larrañaga has decided to step down in the middle of his 14th year on the bench at Miami. The 75-year-old Larrañaga told reporters that though he still loves basketball and coaching it, he doesn't love what the college game has become, which is why he decided to exit. He said at a news conference, quote, "At this point, after 53 years, I just didn't feel that I could successfully navigate this whole new world that I was dealing with because my conversations were ridiculous, with an agent saying to me, well, you can get involved if you're willing to go to $1.1 million, and that would be the norm." This is where I point out that the NIL game worked really well for Jim Larrañaga 2 years ago. Remember that big NIL deal Nigel Pack got to leave K-State? Where did he get that money from? Oh, yeah, Miami. And what did he help Miami do? Go to the tournament. Go to the Final Four. Jim Larrañaga took Miami to the Final Four in 2023 1 year after going to the first Elite Eight in program history. That was the first Final Four in Miami basketball history. And he's one of a rare few coaches who've taken two programs to their first and heretofore only Final Fours, having done the same with the Cinderella story that was George Mason back in 2006. Remember the 11 seed Patriots going to the Final Four, knocking off number 1 UConn along the way. So it's an accomplished career. It's one that deserves a tip of the cap, certainly for Jim Larrañaga. But this idea that he's retiring because of NIL, it's nonsense to me. And I hate hearing that from coaches. I don't care how old they are. I don't care what their track record of success is or isn't. If you're retiring because of NIL, just say you don't want to do the work anymore. The job is the job. And every job evolves. Every job, literally, every job changes. There's new technology. There's new demands. You get new bosses. Your bosses get new bosses. Jobs change. You can either stick with them or you can get out. And it's not noble to quit, particularly mid-season. If he can't hack it anymore, that's fine. If he doesn't want to do it anymore, he should get out of it if his heart's not in it. Those kids that are playing for him, that committed to him, deserve a coach who's all the way committed. And if that's not him, then he should do what he's doing. But this idea of, NIL drives another one out of the game. Well, NIL worked pretty good for Jim Larrañaga there for a little bit, and then it stopped. And that's what this is really about, I think. It's not, NIL drove me out of the game. It was working for me, and now it's not. And I'm not young enough. I don't have enough energy to try and keep up. And that's fine. We all run out of energy eventually. But don't say, the NIL is too ridiculous these days. Yeah, it wasn't ridiculous when Nigel Pack got $800,000 to go play for you for 2 years. It wasn't ridiculous then, was it? Because he got you to an Elite Eight. So I've got so little patience for coaches, major college coaches. That's what the money is for you. That's why you are making 7 figures, to deal with those things. If you don't want to deal with those things, go coach in the NAIA. Go coach high school. There's lots of coaching you can do. You don't have to take all that money. If you think money has corrupted college athletics, go coach at Division III. Jim Calhoun coached at Division III. You guys remember that? The former UConn coach? He went down to Division III and coached for a couple of years. Built a program from scratch. But I just don't want to hear about, I'm not coaching anymore because NIL got too difficult to navigate. Well, you got worse at navigating it is what happened. Or your school didn't open up the pocketbook the way that it did because your sugar daddy, that wallet hub or whatever it is, the wallet guy, what's his name? John Cruz or what is his name? Was it Wallet Hub? Man, I cannot remember the name of the booster who gave Nigel Pack all that money. That guy's company's belly up. And so now NIL's not really shaking like it used to for Miami basketball. So that's why Jim Larrañaga's out. It's not NIL drove him out of the game. It's his program's lack of success with NIL that drove him out of the game. So let's be real honest about that. Because when we say, NIL is driving coaches out of the game, what we're doing is making it the kids' problem, the players' problem, making them the bad guys when all they're getting is what should have been theirs all along. And what, if the NCAA had any foresight, would have been theirs all along, the ability to profit from what is theirs, their ability, their name, their image, their likeness. It always should have been there. And the fact that it wasn't and now has become this, the NCAA has no one to blame for that but themselves. And I will not stand for the college athlete being made to be the bad guy in the quote-unquote NIL era, because all they're getting is what they should have always gotten. And if your job has changed as the coach, you don't like it, world needs plenty of bartenders. Next headline. While we're on the subject of college coaches, let's talk about Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. They play in the Alamo Bowl coming up. The Alamo Bowl is, I'm scrolling because I don't know this off the top of my head. The Alamo Bowl is on Saturday, one of several college games that's on Saturday. Saturday night, ABC, BYU and Colorado. Look, you can say what you want about the Big 12. No other conferences are playing third-place games. Only the Big 12 is playing a third-place game in a bowl. Only the Big 12's got that kind of stroke to make that happen. BYU and Colorado, a de facto Big 12 third-place game in the Alamo Dome. And Colorado will have the services of their two best players, Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter and quarterback Shedeur Sanders, both of whom are projected to be top picks in the upcoming NFL draft. And the university and head coach Deion Sanders have said that they have secured record insurance coverage for both Sanders and Hunter. Colorado has not disclosed the amount of insurance each player receives, citing privacy laws. But Coach Deion Sanders and athletic director Rick George said it was the largest in college football history because, again, we're dealing with Coach Prime. Everything has to be gold-plated. Everything has to be the biggest and the best and the most, and you've never seen anything like this, and you've never seen it before in your life. That's Deion Sanders. If it sounds like another public figure, you're not alone. Deion told the media on Monday, we happen to have two players that are probably going to be the first two picks of the NFL draft. I don't know about that, but okay. We all know who those two are, and they have received, I think, the highest number of coverage that has ever been covered in college football. It far exceeds anyone that has ever played this game of college football. Colorado also increased disability coverage for its entire roster, with Sanders and Hunter receiving larger policies because of their expected draft status. I have said this consistently. I continue to believe this is true. Everything that Deion Sanders does is prefaced by a question. Is this good for Deion Sanders? Is it good for Deion Sanders to have his son and Travis Hunter play in this bowl game? It sure is. Because here's something to know about Coach Prime, if you do not know this about Coach Prime as a head coach. Deion was the head coach at Jackson State for 3 years. And he went to the Celebration Bowl twice in those 3 years. That is effectively, there are some who refer to that as the Black National Championship game. It is the biggest bowl game meeting between HBCUs, right? Celebration Bowl is the champs of the SWAC and the champs of the MEAC. And it is referred to as the de facto Black College Football National Championship game. Deion got teams to the Celebration Bowl twice, and they went 0-2. Okay? Deion's never won the big one as a coach. They didn't have any big ones his first year at Colorado because they went 4-8. The big one this past year, the one they had to get was the one at Arrowhead against Kansas, and they got bullied. They got dog-walked. And they lost that game. So they could not make the Big 12 championship game. So Deion's never won the big one as a head coach. But this is a bowl game. Like the Celebration Bowl is a bowl game. This is a bowl game. So this is a big game in that sense. So yeah, make Deion Sanders pretty good, or look pretty good if he wins this game. And is he going to win this game with whoever their backup quarterback is, throwing to not Travis Hunter? Probably not. Maybe they could, but it wouldn't come as easy. So yes, the Deion brand is accentuated by having another nationally televised spotlight game to bask in the light that Travis Hunter casts, and that his son, who's a fine player, Shedeur Sanders, casts as well. But that's the question. That's where you have to start the conversation with anything that happens adjacent to Deion Sanders. It all comes back to, is this good for Deion Sanders? Yes, this is good for Deion Sanders to have those two guys on the field. So I'm not saying that it's bad to insure both Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. I think it's good. If they're going to play, they better be insured. Right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it benefits Deion Sanders. And everything, all will come back to that. Is this good for Deion Sanders? Not, is this good for Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter? You can argue that it's not. I don't care how much insurance money is at stake. It's not enough to cover if the worst case scenario does come to play and there's a catastrophic injury suffered by either player that hurts their draft stock. It's not going to be enough to cover that, even if it is the biggest and the most insurance that you've ever seen. So is it good for them to play in the bowl game? I would still say no. I don't blame any player who opts out of a bowl game. I really don't. Particularly if there are millions of dollars at stake. But is it good for Deion Sanders to have them both out there on the field? Yep. Because this gives Deion a chance to do something that's close to something that he has never done, and that is win a big game. So that's the motivation here. You know, it's got nothing to do with restoring the importance of bowl season or, you know, showing players it's important to always be there for your team and whatever motives you want to ascribe to Deion Sanders. That's all well and good. There is only one motive with Deion Sanders. There will only ever be one motive with Deion Sanders. This has been the case since he was a player at Florida State. The only motive for Deion Sanders is this good for Deion Sanders? And is this good for Deion Sanders? Yeah, it is. One final headline. I hate doing ratings stories, but I do think that there is an interesting element to the ratings stories coming out of Christmas Day. A lot of y'all watch some sports on Christmas Day. By a lot of y'all, I also mean myself. Netflix smashes records with NFL doubleheader on Christmas Day is the headline from the Associated Press. The most streamed NFL games in history. The NFL and Nielsen said 65 million U.S. viewers tuned in for at least 1 minute of one of the two NFL games on Netflix on Christmas Day. The Ravens-Texans game averaged 24.3 million. The Chiefs win over the Steelers averaged 24.1 million viewers. Now, neither game was particularly competitive. I guess the Ravens-Texans advantage might have been A, game was later in the day, particularly on the West Coast, and B, they had a Beyonce concert at halftime. I told you that was going to be a big deal. By all accounts, I didn't get to watch it live. By all accounts, it was sick. By all accounts, it was really good. And I'm not like a super fan of Beyonce's music or anything like that, but game recognized game, right? You recognize when a performer is putting on a show, and that is what Beyonce did on Christmas Day. So that maybe accounts for the difference because it certainly wasn't the quality of the game. The Ravens curb stomped the Texans, who are completely cooked. I don't think the Texans are going to win a playoff game. I think whoever gets the 5 seed is going to beat them, which could be Baltimore, could be Pittsburgh. But also on Christmas Day, the NBA had its best holiday viewership numbers in 5 years. The NBA's 5-game Christmas Day slate averaged about 5.25 million viewers per game across ABC, ESPN, and its platforms. And that's interesting because last year, I think, were the worst Christmas Day ratings ever for the NBA when they were up against an NFL triple-header. They were only up against a doubleheader on Wednesday, but here's the other thing about that NFL triple-header from last year. It was on television. It wasn't streaming. It was on TV. You knew where to find it. You could watch it at grandma's house if all grandma had was an antenna or cable or satellite. You didn't need somebody's Netflix password or somebody to hook up a Fire Stick to grandpa's television to try and figure out a way to watch the NFL games. You could just have the NBA on. And I think that was probably helpful for the NBA. So it's a nice little symbiotic relationship that ended up developing, whether accidentally or on purpose, right? The NBA gets better numbers because it becomes the sports option for people who either aren't tech savvy or don't have the ability to access Netflix or just don't pay for it. That's the sports option. You can have it on TV. All the men in the house on Christmas Day, I don't want to be sexist. Women enjoy sports too. And they can go around the TV and they could have watched Wemby against the Knicks, which was a really good game. They could have watched Celtics and Sixers, which was a really good game. LeBron versus Steph, which ended up being, again, a really good game. Good games help. NBA had good games. NFL didn't. And if you were tech savvy and you were at a gathering that had Netflix, you could watch the NFL the way you normally watch the NFL. So it actually worked out pretty good for both parties. Both parties get really good press and a whole lot of eyeballs. And that, at the end of the day, again, is what this is all about, the television audience. We're going to take a time out. I want your thoughts, by the way. If you watch the Chiefs broadcast on Netflix, I want to hear from you what you thought of it. So text the program, 785-272-9429. Also hit us up in the YouTube live chat as well, and we'll get to those in the next segment. But I have one more golf headline for you, and it's the bizarre injury department. Scottie Scheffler is going to miss 3 to 4 weeks of play as the PGA Tour season opens in January with the Sentry in Hawaii because he suffered a puncture wound to the palm of his right hand from broken glass while preparing dinner on Christmas Day. Again, that's the number one golfer in the world stabbing himself with a broken glass on Christmas. He's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. He will not play the Sentry, which will be played next weekend in Kapalua, Hawaii. That's a bummer for him. Won't get to play golf for 3 to 4 weeks. I might play golf this weekend at one of the Great Life golf courses. My dad's coming to town. My folks are coming in. They're going to see their grandson. He's the draw now, not me. Let's be honest. But I have a chance to play a little golf this weekend. It's going to get into the 50s. Hopefully it'll dry up a little bit. And the Great Life courses are in terrific shape. 5 outstanding courses across Topeka. And, if it doesn't dry out real good, maybe we'll just go to Great Life North and be a part of the Top Tracer technology. Get one of those bays, those heated bays, play the golf simulator. You don't need to go all the way out to Overland Park to do Top Golf. You can do it at Top Tracer in North Topeka, Great Life North. And I have the ability to do that with my Great Life membership. And you should be a Great Life member too. Go to greatlifetopeka.com for more information. When we come back, we're talking more football here on 580 Sports Talk. Before we get back into the Chiefs and K-State, some breaking news. Folks, we have gone over 700 YouTube subscribers. Jeffrey in the YouTube chat, first one to break the news. We are up to now 704 YouTube subscribers. That's another milestone. Without you, Brendan, maybe next one, Jeffrey said. Now we're taunting Brendan in the YouTube live chat. I don't know about that. That's pretty funny. We got to 700 subscribers plus. Thank you so very much for subscribing to the YouTube. For those of you who watch the show on YouTube, if you watch it live, if you watch the archived version, we know we have a lot of people come back, maybe catch it later on in the day or maybe the next morning and podcast like a podcast. We so appreciate it. Thank you so much for making us a part of your sports media diet. We know there are only but so many hours in the day, and there's lots of options. Everybody's got a podcast. The sixth reliever for the Chicago Cubs has a podcast, probably. There's lots of options, and the fact that you choose us means a great deal to all of us. I know I speak for both Brendan and Spencer when I say that. So thank you very much for getting us to that milestone. Chiefs beat the Steelers, beat the brakes off the Steelers. It's a funny thing. The Steelers have really kind of collapsed here down the stretch. They've dropped to 10-6. They got some bad losses, and they look pretty beatable when the playoffs roll around. Now, I still think they're going to end up the 5 seed. I don't know how the tiebreakers work, but if they end up the 5 seed, they're going to play Houston in the first round of the playoffs. And I don't think Houston's beating anybody. I think Houston wants to go home. Houston looks out on their feet. But Pittsburgh, they're 10-6, and they've lost 3 in a row, and against good teams. Like, let's be honest, they lost at Philly, they lost at Baltimore, they lost to the Chiefs. It's not like they're losing to bums, right? But that's playoff competition, right? You got to win games against good teams if you yourself are a good team, and they haven't been able to get it done. And while Russell Wilson, when you watch him, still does Russell Wilson things, can still hit you for a deep ball, he can still scramble out of trouble on third down, he is still a limited quarterback at this stage of his career. He's 36 years old. Of course he's limited. And the Chiefs were able to exploit that, sack him 5 times without Chris Jones in the lineup, which is not, frankly, something I would have bet on. And Charles Omenihu continues to look great coming off of his injury. How about Felix Anudike-Uzomah had a nice moment with his sack in the second half. Tershawn Wharton got another one. George Karlaftis, every one of his sacks is an effort sack. Like, I'm trying to remember when the last time I saw George just beat his guy one-on-one and just mush the quarterback like 3 seconds into his drop back. Every one of George's sacks, he's tripping somebody up by their shoelaces. And I mean, it's a good way to make a living. Kind of reminds me of, you guys remember Grant Wistrom? Used to play for the Nebraska Cornhusker, play for the Rams and the Seahawks, made a lot of money, record a lot of sacks. That's kind of who George reminds me of. He kind of reminds me of a Grant Wistrom. He's up to 8 sacks, and they all kind of feel like they're the same play each and every time. The Chiefs got the win. The game was on Netflix. Some of you say you didn't see it. Mark H in the YouTube live chat said, my dad said he wasn't paying $25 for one game. I respect that. I do. I don't know if Netflix does free trials. Been subscribed for so long. Like Peacock last year, when they had the Chiefs playoff game, Peacock did a free trial. So it was easy enough to just sign up for the free trial. I wonder how many of y'all are still paying for that. And you didn't even realize it. You just forgot to cancel your Peacock, and you look up and you're paying $8 a month for a streaming service you aren't using. We're just inured to that at this point. I think it's probably built into the business model for a lot of those streamers. Yeah, these people will forget they're paying for it. It's true. Like, I pay for Paramount Plus, and sometimes I forget that's even a thing. Unless there's something I really want to watch on it, which not often. But Netflix had the game. I thought the broadcast quality, which is the thing I was most concerned about because they'd never really shown they could handle a live broadcast cleanly. It was fine. I didn't experience any buffer. I thought the picture quality was pretty good for the most part. Didn't lose the feed at any point. They hired great play-by-play guys. Ian Eagle and his son, Noah Eagle, which, by the way, you're going to hear Noah Eagle for the next, 50 years. He's going to do this forever. He's already so good. And I remember, he got the Clippers job. He got the Clippers radio job, I think, right out of college, right out of Syracuse. And I rolled my eyes. Nepotism in the broadcasting business. Have you never seen this before? If his name was Noah Smith, he wouldn't have gotten that job. Nah, man. Sometimes the Nepo babies are really good. Jacob Dylan is a Nepo baby, but One Headlight by the Wallflowers is a great song. Sometimes the Nepo babies, they get to where they're going because they are that talented. And Noah Eagle is that good, man. He is going to be he will be the voice for, I think about my son, what voices he's going to be hearing. I grew up with the voices and well into my adulthood with the voices of Al Michaels and Joe Buck, and before him, Jack. And for my son, Noah Eagle's going to be one of those voices for sure. No question. He's great. So they hired the right play-by-play guys. The color analysis, I thought Nate Burleson and J.J. Watt were recording dialogue for a video game the entire time they were doing analysis. It was a lot of, from Nate Burleson, I spoke to Russell Wilson before the game, and he said this game was going to be tough. Like, lame. You're not giving me anything. J.J. Watt, like, personality. You got a little bit of personality in the booth. I wouldn't mind hearing more from J.J. Watt in the booth, but there is obvious that was a booth thrown together for the first time to do that game. Camera work was fine. The score bug was fine. The halftime pregame crew was pretty good, I thought. I'm a big Mina Kimes fan, so I was happy to see her. Robert Griffin III is fine. It wasn't revelatory. It didn't reinvent sports broadcasting, but it worked. And that was my biggest concern was it even going to work? Are we even going to get to see this? We did. And so it turned out fine. And if you did pay $25 for one Chiefs game, I mean, for the 2024 Chiefs, that's the one to pay for, right? that was $25 worth of butt kicking that the Chiefs gave you on Christmas Day. One last thing I want to point out with regards to the Chiefs. They still have not scored 30 points in a game. It's the most unbelievable stat. The other teams in the NFL that have yet to score 30 in a game, and again, we're only 2 weeks from the end of the season. There are 3 other teams that have not scored 30 points in a game. The Patriots, who are 3-12, the Raiders, who are 3-12, and the Giants, who are 2-13. Every other team in the league has scored at least 30 points once. Even some of the other sad sack teams in the league, the Bears and the Panthers, teams like that. The Chiefs have not gotten to 30 yet in a game. The Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid Chiefs. And they're 15-1. And at this point, I think they're committed to the bit because Butker missed the extra point, and then they had to go for 2 and they didn't get it. If either of those things happen, the Chiefs finish on 29, right? It's like they're playing blackjack, only the number is 30. How close can we go without going over? 19, hit me. 20, hit me. And Vance is exactly right. When you have a Chiefs defense like the Chiefs defense, you don't need 30 to win. Certainly those teams that we were talking about, New England, the Raiders, the Giants, they don't have the kind of defense the Chiefs have. But it's incredible commitment to the bit that they should have scored 30 on Wednesday. And they could have scored 30 if Kareem Hunt had decided he wanted to score on that run that sealed the game against Houston. That would have put him over 30 in that game too. So commitment to the bit. I applaud it from the Chiefs. One final thought too on the Rate Bowl from last night. K-State wins the Rate Bowl. And one of the dumbest talking points surrounding K-State football can finally be put to rest. They can win in alternate uniforms. They can wear a white helmet and win a football game. Honestly, it was very funny for a while there to say, that's why they don't wear alternate uniforms. They never win in them. And then they kept not winning in them. And then when they went to the white helmets for the Rate Bowl and they went down 34-17, I could just hear certain K-State fans, my father-in-law among them, grousing about the white helmets. They came back and won. And the curse is over. And for Chris Kleiman to be in tune with it enough to mention it on the podium, accepting the bowl trophy, was extremely funny to me. But the curse is over. And now maybe K-State can stretch their legs a bit in the alternate uniform space. What about purple on purple for a game? What about lavender? Steal it from the basketball team. They're not doing it any honor right now. Lavender's too good a color to be the exclusive property of just one team on campus. Let's get some lavender in the helmets or lavender trim. What about that? Stretch your legs. Explore the alternate uniform space. It can be done. You can never say again, K-State can't win in an alternate uniform. We'll take a timeout, come back, preview the football weekend to come. The college games should be better than the pro games. We'll tell you why next on 580 Sports Talk. 548 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero with you. Rounded third, heading for home on the week. A lot of bowl games this weekend. There's one going on right now. It's another good one, the Birmingham Bowl. No, it's not good anymore. Last I checked, it was a good game. Vanderbilt's now blowing Georgia Tech out 35-13, and the game is delayed. So there's that, too. Later on tonight, got the Liberty Bowl, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Texas Tech and Arkansas. A lot of opt-outs for both teams in that game. The DirecTV Holiday Bowl, Syracuse and Wazoo. That game's on Fox. Syracuse is an 18-point favorite. Everybody for Wazoo is either opted out or in the portal because their coach went to Wake Forest. So that could get ugly. And then USC and Texas A&M in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. That's tonight at 9:30 if you want to stay up late on a Friday night. Tomorrow, you got the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. Wasabi a company, or is it just the idea of Wasabi sponsoring the Fenway Bowl? UConn, North Carolina, that game's at Fenway Park. Then at Yankee Stadium, you have the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, Boston College, and Nebraska. Hey, Nebraska in a bowl game. Been a while. The Ileta, New Mexico Bowl features Louisiana and TCU. That's an afternoon kick. Pop-Tarts Bowl, Iowa State and Miami. Cyclones trying to finish with 11 wins. At 4:30 on the CW, the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, Miami, Ohio, and Colorado State. Then you have the Go Bowling Military Bowl. Now, that is not sponsored by the bowls. That is sponsored by the sport of bowling. The idea of going to the lanes and renting some shoes and hitting some turkeys and some 7-10 splits with your boys or your girls. The Go Bowling Military Bowl, East Carolina and NC State. The Alamo Bowl, I'm actually really interested to watch the Alamo Bowl. It does. It piques my interest that Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders are going to play. BYU and Colorado at the Alamo Dome. And then the late game on Saturday, Louisiana Tech and Army in the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. 9:15 p.m. Eastern in Shreveport, baby. Where else would you rather be? Remember, that's the game that Marshall opted out of because Marshall decided, yeah, no thanks. We got too much of our team in the portal, and our coach left. A shout out to Washington State for even playing in their bowl game. You know, they could have opted out like Marshall, but they stuck with it. Your NFL viewing options, you got the triple header Saturday, which if you can't watch them, we're going to have all three of those games here on 580 WIBW, the NFL triple header from Westwood One. Chargers at Patriots, Broncos at Bengals, Cardinals at Rams. I think Denver, Cincinnati probably be the best of the bunch. If Denver loses, they will need to beat the Chiefs backups to get into the playoffs in Week 18, which would be a very funny scenario. Then on Sunday, we'll have the Jets and the Bills as our lone CBS game. Dallas at Philadelphia early on Fox, and then the nationally televised late game, Green Bay at Minnesota. The Sunday night game is Atlanta and Washington. I'm going to keep it all the way real with you. The only game in the NFL slate that I even have the barest interest in wanting to watch in like thinking it's going to be good football, Green Bay, Minnesota. That will be a good game. The rest of them, you can keep them. My family's in town. We'll find something else to do. Maybe we'll go play golf. So you can keep the rest of that slate, man. You putting the Jets on my television 4 days after Christmas? How dare you? How dare you, CBS? We're going to hit one more break here. We'll come back with a final word to wrap up this week and this show on 580 Sports Talk. Before I get to my final word, little breaking Major League Baseball news. Teoscar Hernandez returning to the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, 3 years, $66 million. You'll never believe this, but a lot of that money is deferred. It's another corner outfield option off the table for the Royals. I don't think they were ever seriously in on Hernandez, but if that's the market, $22 million a year for a corner bat, I would expect them to probably also be out on the likes of Anthony Santander or Jurickson Profar, even though I don't think either of those would be very good investments. Royals still been idle, and there have been other things happening. The Tigers signed Gleyber Torres earlier today, boost their lineup a little bit. So Royals need one more bat. Maybe we'll be talking about that one in the new year. Final word for me today. Kansas State restored the vibes with that win in the Rate Bowl last night. It was a difficult end to their season, losing 3 of 4, having an opportunity to play for a conference title, make the playoff, get away from them, and that could have affected how they played in the bowl game. It would have been very easy, and Chris Kleiman pointed this out in his post-game press conference, for K-State to hang their heads down by 17 points and give up the fight and just take it into the next offseason. But that's not the culture of Kansas State football. We asked some questions. We worried about the culture based upon how not just this season, but last season ended with some disappointing losses in season finales. We wondered, where's the culture at with this program? Where's the belief at with this program? Well, last night should show you that the culture's in a good place, that the belief, that the effort, that the passion are all in good places, and that the offense in particular is in extremely good hands with a core of Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, Joe Jackson, and Jace Brown, not to mention a stable of talented tight ends being joined by 5-star recruit Lincoln Cure. That, to me, sounds like a skill position group that might be the envy of the rest of the Big 12 going into the next season. So don't be surprised if K-State enters 2025 as the favorites to win the Big 12. That'll do it for today's edition of 580 Sports Talk. That'll do it for the week. We are off Saturday and Sunday, of course. We will be back with you on Monday for one more show in the calendar year 2024. It'll be our 580 Sports Talk year in review, January through December. We'll recap the year that was locally, nationally, show-wise. There's lots to recap show-wise. We'll have some clips from the show throughout the year, and then in the 4 o'clock hour, smack in the middle of the program, the year in What Is Wrong With You. We will bring back all 12 of our monthly champions and preview the What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions that will take place on January 2nd and 3rd on the show. It's a program you won't want to miss. We hope you'll join us for it. Again, from Monday from 3 to 6, it's the 580 Sports Talk year in review featuring the year in What Is Wrong With You. We're going to have fun. It'll be me and you on the other side of the radio or you on the other side of this live video stream. And I look forward to spending that time with you on Monday. Until then, have an outstanding weekend. Glad you were here with me today. Appreciate you hanging out. Hope you all had a great Christmas. And we'll talk to you again on Monday from 3 to 6. I am Dan Lucero. This was 580 Sports Talk. Have a great rest of your night.